Thank you for joining us today as we announce the launch of my new book, When Relief Becomes a Prison. This book was born out of the years of engagement with the communities, families, young people, professionals, institutions, grappling with the growing challenge of alcohol, drug, and substance abuse. As a Voice of Restoration International, one of our mandate of the core thematic areas has been in the field of mental health and as well as the area of alcohol, drug, and substance abuse, prevention and treatment. So from the experiences in the field, there's this rising cases of mental health challenges as well as growing challenge of alcohol, drug, and substance abuse. It is a response to this kind of crisis that is silently affecting homes, schools, workplaces, and communities across Uganda and beyond. Every day, thousands of people seek relief from stress, from trauma, from disappointments, from poverty, from loneliness, unemployment, grief, and emotional pain. Many turn to alcohol, drug and substances, gambling, unhealthy relationships, and harmful coping mechanisms in search of comfort. What begins as an attempt to escape pain after many challenges often becomes a deeper trap. The relief becomes a prison. When Relief Becomes a Prison is a book that explores that painful journey. It examines how addiction develops, why people become trapped, the devastating impact on individuals, on families and communities, and the practical pathways towards healing and recovery and restoration. At its core, it is not just a book about alcohol or drugs. It is a book about human suffering. It is a book about human resilience, and it's also a book about human potential. It challenges us to look beyond the substance and understand the deeper issues driving addiction. It calls upon society to replace stigma with understanding, silence with the dialogue, and judgment with support. That's why the theme for this book launch is breaking the silence, confronting addiction, substance use, and alcohol in West Nile region. The timing of this launch is significant because across Uganda, communities are increasingly concerned about the rising levels of alcohol and substance abuse, particularly among young people. Families are being strained, dreams are being cut short, opportunities are being lost. The social and economic costs continue to grow. The greatest danger facing our communities is not simply the availability of alcohol and drugs, but the silent loss of a generation whose potential is being imprisoned by addiction. Every young person lost to addiction represents a lost innovator, a lost entrepreneur, a lost teacher, a lost health worker, a lost farmer, a leader, a parent, and a national builder. Addiction is therefore not merely an individual's problem. It is a family issue, it is a community issue, and a public health concern. And it affects development as well as national issues. Now, the launch of this book is therefore more than a literary event. It is a call to action and the beginning of a broader movement for prevention, recovery, and restoration. Just like our name, Voice of Restoration, we want to be a voice to that restoration. And we want to be a voice that will bring recovery, that will bring treatment, and that will bring restoration, because prevention is at the core of our messages. Now, as we approach the launch, our expectations are very clear. Our expectations are that we hope that this particular book will raise awareness, which will be national awareness about the realities, causes, and the consequences of alcohol, drug, and substance abuse. Last year, you remember, we were part of the team that went to Parliament, asking our MPs, asking Parliament to advocate for alcohol control bill, which bill was aimed at preventing harm which is caused by alcohol. And last year, the MPs didn't see the need of what we're saying, but still we want to continue to advocate so that this becomes a national concern. Because in my book here, I talked about the issues, the burdens which is affecting our current nation, because we are looking at it in terms of the national development goals. You know, the national development goals. We're also looking at towards the sustainable development goals, and we're looking at all of these. And when you look at the national development goals, we cannot have this achieved when addiction is taking root in our young people, when our young people are becoming ineffective at workplaces, when our young people can no longer do any work. And if you're very keen, right from Pakwach, the whole of West Nile region, even this morning, young people are drunk. That means work is affected and productivity is lost, and that kind of huge potential is lost. So we are calling upon government, we are calling upon everyone else to begin that kind of movement to raise national awareness about the realities of this. Number two, we are also hoping that through this book, we'll be able to break the silence around addiction and encourage honest conversation within families, communities, schools, workplaces, and places of worship. Sorry to say, I'm sure you've seen a video circulating in one of our where one staff in a particular bank came to work drunk. I'm sure you saw that video where I think he was the supervisor or the manager who was recording this drunk staff and asking him to leave the workplace, which was actually a very humiliating way. But you see, at the end of the day, instead of breaking the silence to support this kind of person, instead it turns to be what? Humiliating them at workplaces, humiliating them in family levels and all that. So we are saying, no, can we break the silence? A person is a person, a problem is a problem, a person has a problem. A person is never a problem. But can we address the issues? Can we have conversation around there? And then also, through this book, we are hoping that we will be able to promote prevention. We'll be able to, particularly among our young people who remain most vulnerable to the growing influence of alcohol and drugs. You come to Arua City here, most of our young people from primary, secondary, many are mentally ill right now, come to the mental health unit. A good number there who are young people are there because of alcohol and drugs. So we are saying, can we prevent some of this impact of alcohol and drugs? Also, we are hoping that through this book, we'll be able to strengthen family and community engagements in identifying risks early enough, supporting recovery programs, and creating protective environment for our young people. Also, through this book, I hope that we will be able to advance understanding of the link between addiction, mental health, trauma, stress, and emotional well-being. Also, to inspire policy discussions and institutional responses that strengthen prevention, treatment, rehabilitation, and recovery services. Many of you know that every time I am invited to the Arua City meetings with the city leadership, my focus has always been on the policies around alcohol prevention, about drugs issues. Why? Because we need ordinances, we need bylaws. These are policy issues, and because when we continue to have this kind of conversations, we can actually have a healthy Arua City, we can have a healthy West Nile, and we can have a healthy Uganda as well. Then also to mobilize partnerships among government agencies, development partners, civil society organizations, educational institutions, cultural leaders, faith institutions, and the private sector. Why? Because we believe that we can work as a team in this drive. And actually, even after this briefing, we are going to one of the schools here in Arua City, where we are beginning a program from around 10:30 after break, and we are having the whole day with the students and the staff. You know, because these are conversations that we want to have at education institution levels, at cultural levels, because even one of the issues in my book here has been on the whole issue of the culture, because culture plays a very big role here, even the role of the leaders, the role of the cultural issues. And also you realize that in our cultures here in West Nile, there are particular tribes, there are particular communities where, for example, when a child is born, the first thing to put in the mouth of the child is alcohol. And these are conversations that we're trying to have with the cultural leaders. Can we change some of these narratives? Because when we show them the negative impact of alcohol on these babies, maybe they can find another alternative to give these babies even when they're practicing their rituals. So also, we also want to promote hope, recovery, by demonstrating that addiction is preventable, treatable, and also people who once were addicted can live restored lives. Why? Chapter 4 is my story in this book. Because, in fact, as a matter of fact, this was me. So letting people know that there is a hope amid these addictions. Recovery is possible. People can actually be transformed. There is a power of transformation that actually takes place. So we want to emphasize these issues. Then also launch a sustainable advocacy movement that extends beyond the event. The event will just be on 26th of June, yes, but we want to see a sustainable advocacy beyond this date so that we can continue to have dialogues, we can continue to have school engagements, we continue to have media campaigns, we continue to have workplace programs, to continue to have leadership forums and public awareness initiatives. And also we hope that through this book we'll be able to contribute to protecting the next generation from the devastating impact of addiction. That's why a good chapter in this particular book has been targeting the next generation, because the next generation also plays a very big role. Because my question that I was asking myself is, what happens to the next generation if we don't support, if we don't put something? That's why I have put this book here, Preventing Addiction in the Next Generation. That is my hope. And I believe even if I died after the launch, I am very happy, because if the children read this kind of material, maybe we can actually preserve, and even with some of the content that I have shared here, because like I've always shared it here, I have written this book from 3 perspectives. Perspective number 1 is I have undergone through the training of addiction treatment. So I understand what it means for somebody to suffer addiction. I understand what it means to have the chemistry, to understand the biology, to understand the science of the brain, addiction, and so on. As somebody who has gone through the training in addiction treatment and recovery. Number 2, as somebody who has lived the experience. Yeah. And number 3, as somebody who is a community leader who wants the best for the next generation. So it is from that basis that, most importantly, we hope that this book will reach those who may feel trapped, who may feel forgotten, who may feel hopeless. Its message is clear. Addiction is not the end of the story. Recovery is possible. Lives can be restored. Families can heal. Communities can rebuild. Relief should lead to restoration, not imprisonment. So as we gather on 26th of June, we are not simply launching a book. We are launching a conversation. We are launching a movement. We are launching a renewed commitment to protect our youth, to strengthen our families, to promote mental health and mental well-being, and confront one of the most pressing social challenges of our time. So, we invite the media to become partners in this effort. Your platforms have the power to shape public understanding, reduce stigma, amplify stories of hope and recovery, and mobilize communities towards positive action. Together, we can break the silence surrounding addiction and create a society where individuals find support, healing, and purpose rather than isolation and dependencies. Let this launch be remembered not merely as the release of a publication, but as the beginning of a collective journey towards awareness, prevention, recovery, and transformation. Together, let us ensure that relief becomes a pathway to healing and not a prison of addiction. Thank you for your presence, your partnership, and your commitment to telling stories that matter. Thank you so much.